Hi, I'm Bailey.
And I'm Maddie.
And this is Check-In. We'll be going over many different topics in mental health, such as how social media affects your mental health. But today we're going to be discussing general mental health.
The definition of mental health is a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being.
We have a bunch of statistics about general mental health and how it affects people throughout every day. So the first one is mental health disorders account for several of the top causes of disabilities, which is shocking but not. But I think a lot of people think that, like, when they hear disability, they'll think, like, a physical one.
Yeah, or even, like, a disability with someone, like, that has autism or something on the spectrum of that. They don't necessarily think of, like, depression, anxiety, ADHD, OCD, like, schizophrenia, anything like that. Like, they don't see that as a disability, when in reality, like, that can hinder you from, like, living your everyday life. And that's something that many people don't take seriously unless it's happening to them or, like, a loved one.
Yeah, I think people, like, struggle to understand that, like, your mental health can become your physical health.
Exactly, because, like, you're like, oh, I couldn't get myself out of bed today, like, couldn't go to class today, like, I'm just feeling really depressed, like, I'm down, like, I don't know what's going on, whatever. And they're like, well, why didn't you just do it? They're like, just do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we're not Nike. Like,
that's what I was saying.
I was like, you can try, but I don't think many people understand, which I'm always like, I'm happy you don't understand because I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But it's like, you don't understand because it hasn't happened to you. You don't understand that it's not something that I can just say, I don't feel like it today.
Yeah.
I can't.
And it's like you'll never understand, like, someone else's specific struggle. Even if you both, like, struggle with anxiety, like, everyone has different levels. So, like, for one person, it might just be, like, you know, they, like, can't get out of bed. But another person, they might have ones where, like, they can't stop moving. Otherwise, it makes them anxious.
Exactly. And, like, the ones that hyper-focus and use that to, like, keep themselves busy, so then it doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to stop, because that's when their mind starts racing.
Exactly.
So another statistic we have is that an estimated 26% of Americans ages 18 and older, which is about 1 in 4 adults, suffer from a diagnosable mental disorder every year. Wow. So 1 in 4 adults suffers from a mental disorder. That's kind of crazy.
It is, but it's, like, not, because I hear so many times people are like, yeah, I'm really struggling with, like, anxiety, or I'm really, like, you know, I started, like, taking medication for depression. And it's like, wow, it really is, like, 1 in 4 people.
Yeah, and also if you think about it, like, a lot of people that suffer from one suffer from more than one.
Yeah, they're, like,
and
all
not
connected.
In a bad way where it's like, oh, you know, you have all of these and they're all super dramatic, but it can be where you have really bad anxiety, which causes depression.
Yeah.
Or you can have really bad anxiety, which causes a panic disorder. But that's technically 2 different things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 1 in 4. I think even, this says 18 and older, so I think even if you changed it to even 18 to, like, 25.
I think it would still be the same.
I think it'd be more.
Honestly, it'd probably be, like, half.
Yeah. Because I say that's when, like, the most is probably changing in people's lives.
Yeah.
Unless a dramatic change happens when you're older, but.
No, of course. And I feel like even now, too, like, younger kids, like, high school, middle school, like, they're really suffering from it, too.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, like, now it's a little bit more acceptable to talk about it, although I still think, like, people keep it hush-hush because they think, like, oh, I'm crazy or whatever. But, like, more people are talking about it, so I think that's also, too, why the numbers are getting higher and higher every year.
Yeah, and I think it's also a hard thing when you're in high school and when you're at that age, because you also run into the people that, I mean, high school, I'd say more than college, there's a lot of bullying.
Oh,
and a lot of cliques, and that's something you have to deal with, I mean, in every high school.
Yeah.
So it's I don't want to get judged. I don't want people to think I'm just doing it for attention, because people do say that.
Oh, all the time.
No matter who you are. And if you come out and say, like, this is something I suffer with, and people find out, like, everyone's going to find out, you know?
Yeah.
And then that's when they go, oh, well, you're just doing it for attention. She's, like, dramatic.
Yep, I hear that all the time. Like, oh, that person's just dramatic. And it's like, well, maybe they're actually going through something. Yeah. And if it's 1 in 4 people, like, that's just another reason, like, you don't know what's going on. Because 1 in 4 people in a room are suffering, and you by being like a nasty person or being like, oh, you're just like faking it, that could
Yeah.
really hurt them.
Yeah, and that can honestly, like, most of the time make the condition worse because then they
Yeah.
don't get help because then, like, you're gaslighting them basically
Exactly.
and making them think that, oh, maybe it is all in my head. Maybe I am just doing it for attention. Am I doing this for attention?
Yeah.
When most of the time, you're probably not.
No.
If that's something you're actually, like, thinking about and considering, it's probably not true.
Exactly. And I feel like too, like most people, when they suffer from anxiety and stuff like that, they're like, I don't want to be a problem. Like, I don't want to talk about it because I feel like I'm being a problem. I'm putting all of like my issues on other people. And it's like, but by talking about it, you can actually like help yourself.
And others.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
like when someone else finds out, like when you like speak up and say, well, this is something I like struggle with, obviously if you're comfortable in that setting doing it, someone goes, you do too, like that's something I've been struggling with.
Yeah.
And then I've also run into a lot of people saying, I don't want to talk about it and do it because it's not as bad as this person's, or it doesn't seem as like hard as this person's. But just because you're not as struggling as much as someone else doesn't mean you're not struggling.
Exactly.
And that's what I think a lot of people have trouble like realizing, because like, okay, yes, there's people, I mean, take right now in the pandemic, there's people dying, there's people losing loved ones.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we can't be upset about like losing my senior year, potentially losing like graduation. Like you can still,
It's still
be
valid.
upset about things and still have it be valid, but it's okay to acknowledge that other things are happening that are more important.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean yours shouldn't matter though.
Yeah, because I mean, you're also like, I hear this all the time, like you're the main character in your own story. So like obviously that's what's affecting you right now and not maybe some of the other more like serious problems.
Yeah.
And like it kind of helps putting it in perspective. But then also too, it's like, no, this is happening to me. So like I am going to be upset about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like it's definitely good like to humble yourself a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
So then you're not, you're not getting dramatic about it.
Exactly.
But it's still okay to have those feelings.
Like your feelings are still valid no matter what.
Exactly. So any form of like, okay, yeah, you just started, like, you're at a low dosage of meds, but this person is at the max. That doesn't make yours not important. That doesn't mean you don't need them.
Yeah.
That's just what works for you, and that's what works for them.
Exactly. This one says that approximately 9.5 American adults ages 18 and over will suffer from a depressive illness.
That's not shocking. I think that's when, people say you're through puberty by that age, but honestly, like, you still have a lot of hormones and a lot of things are changing in your life.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when I think people, I mean, just generally tend to feel the most unstable because you don't really have a job. You're coming from, like, being a kid to an adult, and those are the main transitions.
Yeah.
Like, during that early stage. So, there's a lot of uncertainties. You're meeting new people. You're going to new places. Like, you have that first sense of freedom, and that can be really scary because then you realize, like, how big the world really is and what are taxes, like.
Right, still don't know.
I know, it's like you run into all of these things that you're unsure of and everything seems to be coming at you all at once. Like, that's not shocking that it makes people anxious, it makes people depressed, like.
Yeah.
And some people grow out of that and some people don't.
Like, college was my first, like, real experience away from home. Like, I had been away on, like, little things, so I kind of knew what it was like to not rely on my parents and, like, not be home, but being away and 6 hours away from home, it hits different. And you're like, okay, I really am on my own right now. And that's kind of scary.
Yeah, because you have to find, like, your home away from home.
Yeah, all
and
new
you
people.
have to find, like, places where you feel comfortable.
Exactly. And I think, too, like, especially, like, freshmen coming in, you might be living with a roommate for the first time. Or, I went to the school, same kid since kindergarten. Like, I didn't know anybody up here.
Yes.
And so it's like, it's a lot on a person on top of school and maybe having a job and all stuff like that.
So another one is the highest suicide rates in the U.S. are found in Caucasian men over 85. However, suicide is also one of the leading causes of death in adolescents and adults ages 15 to 24.
Wow.
So Caucasian men over 85. That's not what I've guessed. What I would have guessed.
Yeah, no. And I feel like, too, like, I would never guess that someone over the age of or anywhere near like 85 would. I feel like I never hear about it, but obviously
Yeah.
it's happening.
Yeah.
So that is like,
And not to sound like morbid, but I think it's because like people are used to people ages 85 or older kind of passing away and things like that, and that's something that's like more known, whereas I think it's definitely more, I don't want to say like covered in media, but like covered in media when
yeah.
someone like between 15 and 24 takes their own life, because most of the time you don't hear about 15 to 24 like that age group dying in any way.
Yeah. If it is, it's usually like a traumatic event, like suicide.
Yeah.
So,
So like I think when they see it where it's like, oh, they're 85, I mean, I think you also have to think of like the reasoning behind that,
yeah.
where like I think the only thing I would think about that would be a leading cause other than like a mental illness that was already there would be like not having anyone.
Yeah.
I guess, which is like sad to say, but kind of true.
But
Like
around that age,
you get to that age where like
yeah.
maybe they just lost a loved one, maybe they don't really like, maybe maybe they don't have a younger family, maybe they never had kids or anything, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like
Maybe that's like
maybe you don't have
it
anyone,
for them.
so maybe
yeah.
that's when they kind of hit their breaking point.
No,
So
for
I guess
sure.
it's like kind of understandable, but also like not that suicide's not really sad to think about in like general, but when you think about that and like someone just doing it just because of how lonely they are,
Yeah.
that's sad.
I know. And like to think like when you get to that age and like you feel alone, that having all that loss, especially like when you get
Exactly.
older, like I can't even imagine.
I know, and that's something that I think like that would explain a lot, and that's why you don't really think about like
Yeah.
an 85-year-old committing suicide.
No. And it could be too like they, like back in the day. I mean, even like still now, people are like, especially in men, it's like, don't talk about your mental health. You're fine. You're tough. You're strong. You're going to shake it off. Like, and so they never talk about it and they never get help.
And honestly, especially if you think about like the generational differences of those who are 85 right now, that are like, I know it's like stigmatized to say, but like that are boomers, they're baby boomers, like that is their generation. But back then they were like the main generation that was like, don't, like men are men.
Yeah, it was like, you're tough
Yeah.
because you're a guy. Like, let the girls cry.
Yeah, so it's definitely like in our generations now, in like millennials and Generation Z, you know, it's being more taught to say like, okay, men, like it's okay, like
Yeah.
to be who you are.
It's like you have feelings too,
yeah,
I promise.
like we're all people. And we see that much more, but they are still very stuck on the like, you're a man, suck it up and deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of shocked too that it said it was like white men because
Yeah.
normally when you hear like old white man, you're like, oh, everything was handed to you. You get by so easily in society. So to hear that that's like the top for suicide rates to me is crazy because you hear all the time like, oh no, they got everything.
Exactly. Like
But
you
it's like
see like,
they don't.
oh,
Or even
white
if
man
they
that's
do.
like, get off my lawn.
Yeah,
like-
yeah, right.
Something like that.
But it's like, I mean, it kind of shows too, even if you have like everything, you could still have a mental illness and you could still be depressed and you may look like you have a perfect life, but
and like that's not even just for them, that's for like everyone. Like
true.
So many people, like you can sit there and say, okay, like why am I sad?
Yeah. Sometimes you don't even know.
No. Like you sit there and you're like, people say like, if you like tell anyone like, oh, I'm depressed, they're like, why? Like what's wrong? Like is something going on? And it's like, no,
like,
like
nah.
my family's fine, my family's great, I have great friends, like I have a good life, like nothing bad has happened.
Sometimes there's just no reason.
And then you feel worse.
Yeah, because you're like, I shouldn't be feeling like this. And it's like, it's okay. It's like the chemicals in your brain just
like you
are
can't
not having
control it. And I think that's something that everyone needs to realize is that like whether it's happening to you or happening to someone you know, they can't control that.
Yeah.
They don't always have a reason. So like you don't need to feel like you're in the wrong for feeling like that because sometimes there's just not a good answer.
And too, like with social media, everyone looks like they have a perfect life. Everyone is always on a beach vacation with the cute dog and the cute boyfriend and the this and the that. And it's like, girl, your life is not like that all the time. I know it's not.
I know, and it's like, I'm going to post all my best pictures. I'm going to edit out any pimple ever.
Yeah, because it's like, why would I post that? Like,
yeah, it's like, I'm going to make myself look amazing, and I'm going to make myself look so happy, and it's going to be amazing. And I'm going to post that picture while I am in bed crying.
And someone's gonna look at you and be like, "Wow, Maddie's so happy all the time. Look at all of her
Yes.
pictures."
They're gonna be like, wow, she has like the perfect life.
And it's like, if you only knew. Like,
I know.
It's
and
like
it's like you don't know what's
people
going on
suffer.
behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So then like people get the wrong idea about you too.
Yeah.
Because then those become the people where it's like, oh, well, you're perfect. Like you know,
look at your Instagram.
You think you're better than me. Like blah blah. And like so that just like leads them to think that they're not good enough, and then leads them to think that you are stuck up.
Yeah.
Which might be true.
Exactly.
It's just like a stigma of social media right now.
And it definitely, social media leads to a lot of like body issues because it's so easy and like to have access to Photoshop or Facetune to just like suck everything in and make yourself look tiny and like the perfect, like whatever's considered perfect right now. And it's like, they may kind of look like that, but a lot of the times it's like it's just edited, but you see that and you're like, oh, that's what they look like. That's what I'm supposed to look like.
Yeah,
and it can
it's
really
like, why
mess
don't
with
I
you.
look like that? Like why? Like, oh, okay, like this is what I need to buy to look like that. Like, oh, like I remember like going through my life like throughout high school and all this stuff, and like thinking I was like overweight and that I needed to be losing weight. Like I remember
like,
fully thinking that, and I know like a lot of girls think that, you know, that's why I'm not afraid to admit it.
Yeah.
And like even looking back on like my high school photos now, I'm like, why did I think that?
Yeah.
Like why wasn't I just happy?
You're like, girl, you looked fine. Like,
I know,
don't know
like,
what you're
like you're fine. Like you're good.
Yeah.
So it's like crazy to look at it now once, you know, you stop. I think everyone just has to get to a point where they stop letting that stuff affect them. And that's when they can like start to like be happy, and like obviously that's hard to do. Still affected by it.
Yeah. It's
I'm
not
not like, oh,
overnight.
it doesn't control me anymore. It does. But it's
Less and
something that I
less.
like know and I see and I go, okay, this like ad in like Vogue or Cosmo or whatever was photoshopped. It was edited. Like she doesn't look like that in real life. I don't have to look like that.
Exactly.
Which I think is a big issue in that industry anyway.
Oh, yeah.
It needs to be changed. And like I think some social media has taken steps toward that. Like with Instagram taking off, like seeing how many people liked that picture.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Like I can't see that on mine. I know it didn't happen on everyone's, but like
it's like weird because you can like still kind of see it.
you can see
But
like
you have to
who
like go
liked it,
out
but
of
you have
your
to like
way.
count each one.
Yeah.
And most people are way too lazy to do that.
Yeah, me.
Me.
I would never.
But like so I think that's like definitely a step in the correct direction, because I think like with the rise of social media throughout probably the last like 10 years is when it really hit its peak. Like that became an issue, and that's when you see more like mental illnesses arise and like body dysmorphia in men and women, like everyone, just from not even like the supermodels that you see on like magazines anymore, but their friends and people they look up to, which I think causes it to like hit harder and hurt more because it's people you know.
And I've seen too people with like different fashion. They're like, if I don't have this specific thing, like I don't fit in, like I'm worthless. Like I literally heard someone say, I don't have a Gucci belt, so I'm not, like I can't be with this friend group. I don't fit in.
Oh my God.
And I was like, girl, do you know how expensive a Gucci belt is? I bet you they barely can afford that. Like, you don't need a Gucci belt to like fit in. You're not worthless if you don't have one. Like, is it kind of cool? I mean, yeah, sure, if that's your thing, but
whatever.
like,
But like, it's a brand. You're paying for the name, and that's not
100%.
something that matters in the long run. And like in 2 years, that's not even gonna be in fashion anymore.
No, and it like gets under people's skin, and it really makes them feel like that they're not, you know, fully worth it because they don't have like the money to buy certain things, and it's like,
and
well,
like,
it's a belt.
yes, I think everyone kind of gets that way. So like, I mean, I'm not one to say like I'm above that, because I'm definitely not.
Oh,
and like definitely I'll
me
see things that I'm
neither.
like, oh, I want that because everyone has that right now. Like I want like the newest iPhone, or I want like
yeah,
an
like
Apple
the new,
Watch,
it's like
or,
fun and trendy.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I want like that sweater because like that's like what everyone has. Like, yes, I want a Louis Vuitton bag, but I don't have one because I know I can't afford it. I'm in college. But, you know,
doesn't make you less of like a person.
Exactly.
Just
like my
because-
friends aren't
yeah.
gonna like me because I don't have a Louis Vuitton bag.
Exactly. Just because all the Insta models have one.
Exactly.
It's like,
and
it's
like
okay.
we all want to be Instagram models. We know. Like we all
We
do.
get it.
You can say as much as you want, oh, I'm not on it to become. We all want to be a little famous.
I mean, who doesn't want to like?
Exactly.
I mean, with TikTok too, you can blow up overnight and make all this money. I want to do that,
Exactly.
but I'm not Charlie D'Amelio.
I want to get paid to be me. I want to be a Kardashian. But, you know, you get to that age where you're realistic and you're like, okay, I'm probably not going to be a Kardashian. I haven't hit that age yet. I don't know when that age is going to happen.
Soon.
But you come to the point of like what I'm actually trying to say after going on that long tangent is, you know, these things can cause mental illnesses, and these things are like serious things that can actually affect people, as silly as they might sound,
It can be
whether it's a Louis
triggers.
Vuitton bag, being TikTok famous, you know,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. And if your friends are, I'm going to tell anyone right now, if your friends don't accept you because you cannot afford a Gucci belt, you have bad friends, you don't need them. Like,
It's true.
110%, they're not worth it, because that's not what friendship is about in the slightest. So going along with those statistics, we do want to talk about a lot of stereotypes that come along with general mental illness. So, I mean, a lot of them we've kind of touched on already, but I mean, the main one that I feel like a lot of people hear is it's all in your head.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like people think it's something that you're either making up, you're making like you're being too dramatic about it, like you need to just stop, like just, oh, why don't you just tell yourself it's fine?
You're like, oh, I do.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I didn't think of that. Thank you. I'm cured.
It's like when people are like, you're depressed. It's like, yeah. It's like, well, just be happy. Oh,
It's like,
thank you.
I
Thank you
didn't
so
think of
much.
that one. Thank you. Another stereotype is that it's not an actual health issue, which I don't understand why people would say that, because
It's
it
literally
has been
mental
proven.
health.
It's like science.
Yeah, right.
Like, this isn't something that people are saying, well, this could be it. No, like, no, they, like,
Yeah.
brain scans, like, you know, experiments, all that jazz, science.
It's like
it's a thing.
health isn't just gym, body, physical appearance, like, you know, stuff like that. It's like, no, but your mind, body, you know, you always hear like they're connected, but they like really are connected.
Well, yeah, like, that's what I don't get, because they're like, oh, well, it's not pretty rough.
It's like, it's
it's
attached.
in there. It's the most, like, I get your heart and your lungs, the things keeping you alive, yes. But to make you,
It's your head.
It's the brain.
Yeah.
It's the brain. It's all the brain. Like, it does so much. I'm not going to get into it, but it has been proven,
Yeah.
and that's how medication works.
And people are too, it's like, obviously, yes, like it's a chemical thing that's happening in your brain. So, like, yes, it's physically happening in my head, but that doesn't mean it's not going to affect my outside. Like, sometimes people, like, when they get so anxious, they just stop eating, or they can't stop eating. And it's like that, it affects everything. Like, your brain controls, like, the rest of your body. And when you're that anxious, your body can literally shut down.
Yeah, and, like, also, if you're that anxious, like, it leads to things like panic disorders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which makes you literally hyperventilate.
Yeah, you can get, like, shakes from it. Your, like, heart can beat really fast. You can get chest pain. Like, it can turn into physical symptoms.
And just speaking, like, from my own experience, I'm not trying to go there, but if any of you have ever actually hyperventilated, it's awful.
You
Like,
feel like
people
you
are
can't
like,
breathe.
oh, it's something like the paper bag, like, blah, blah. No. When I
No.
hyperventilate, and everyone's experience is different, let me add, but first, my hands go numb. That's how I know it's happening. Because when you hyperventilate, your body thinks something is wrong. So it sends all of your blood to your vital organs, the ones that are keeping you alive. So your extremities, hands, feet, legs, it starts to think, hey, we will take it from there to send to your vitals. So my hands go numb, and then they cramp up. And that's when I know I need to sit down before I fall over, because I lose the function in my legs.
Yeah.
Because you can't breathe.
And it's like, how is that not considered a health issue?
Yeah, like, how isn't that my body being affected? Including other, like, nervous tics, I guess is what I'll call it. Some people pull out their hair. Some people
Yeah.
pull out their eyebrows and their eyelashes. Like, that's a thing that, and they can't stop. Like, me personally, like, I, like, pick at,
Yeah,
like,
like
my skin, like,
I
my
would like
fingers.
bite my nails all the time.
Yeah,
Like
like your
still
nails.
do, but
Yeah,
like
things like that, which that's something affecting your body because of your mind, because of your mental health. So, yes, it is a health issue.
and there are tics too that you may not even realize that like, oh, that's from anxiety. You might just be like,
It's
oh
a
yeah, like
habit.
I just bite my nails. Like it's a really bad habit of mine. But like I notice it happens when I'm getting like all in my head or like anxious about something. I turn to bite my nails and I'm like, oh, there it is. Like
Yeah.
so it kind of is like a tic.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I mean, obviously, to each their own, and everyone can think what they want. But, you know, I think someone that's going to say it's not a real health issue needs to do some more research because it has been proven and it is a real health issue.
And this is
So,
too why people don't ask for help because they don't want to be told that it's not real. Like I've heard people talk about their parents thinking depression is not a real thing. And they end up really suffering and never getting help because their parents don't think it's real and it's like
and when you can't get the help you need and you can't, like, talk about it with anyone, that's what leads to suicide.
yeah.
Like, it's when you have that feeling of hopelessness and you don't know, like, what else to do. That's when we lead to the statistics we talked about before. Like, that's what causes it.
And to like medication, which is a big help with things like that, also has such a negative, like attitude
Connotation,
towards it.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, definitely. Like, people think it's not okay to be on meds. People think, the meds don't really do anything. It's a placebo. Like, I've heard that one before.
That's insane.
But, so if you're, like, have an infection or you have a cold or something, like, say you have strep,
You take stuff.
but it's a placebo, it's just because you think it's helping.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Like, yeah.
That's sarcasm, folks. Like, when you take medicine and it helps you and you no longer have strep, when you take medicine, it helps you and you're no longer anxious or depressed.
Yeah.
Or not as much anyway. It's manageable.
Yeah. Because it's definitely not a magic pill.
No.
But, I mean, I wish. But it helps. It literally is chemicals that helps, like, balance in your brain.
Exactly.
So, I don't understand when people are like, oh, you take medicine, you must be, like, really crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. People take medicine for, like, everyday, like, random little things.
So
and
if
they
I
would
was born
never
with
be called crazy.
diabetes,
Yeah.
are you going to call me crazy?
Apparently.
No.
No,
No.
exactly.
Because it's something that's wrong.
Yeah. It's something you literally cannot help it.
No.
Like there are sometimes thoughts, I know this happens a lot with like people with OCD or even anxiety, like obsessive thoughts. And you cannot control them no matter how hard you try. And so it's like I'm not making this up in my head, like this is how I'm perceiving things. It may not be reality, and how everyone else is reading the room, but that's how maybe I am. And medication can help that.
Exactly. So we like went over kind of a few of them, but I mean the people that call it like you're just using it as an excuse for like things like laziness and like not wanting to go to say like a social function or not needing an extension on a project or something like that. You definitely have the people that are like, no, you just were too lazy to do it and you're just playing a card.
And then too, sometimes people, because there are times where people have like used it when they're not actually going through that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, look, I get it. You want that extension, or you really want to be like lazy today. We all need like mental health days where like you don't do anything, but also like it's not an excuse.
And it's not something that you can use as a card, I guess, because like what I'm trying to say is people do use it when they don't have it. People use it as a card. And like you said, everyone needs a mental health day. Mental health is something everyone has. We all have mental health.
Exactly.
But some people have these issues, which isn't a card for them to play.
It's their real life.
Yeah. So, like, it's not funny to say, oh, I just told him I was depressed.
Yeah.
Like, that's like me telling, like, a teacher, oh, sorry, I just found out I have cancer. I
Yeah.
can't do it.
Can you imagine, like,
You don't
making
really have
up?
cancer.
It's like, no.
Yeah. And, like, I know obviously one can be more dramatic than the other.
Of course.
Clearly, I'm just making a point. But it's things like that that give people that are trying to get help and people that are trying to, like, come forward and, like, talk to someone about this a bad rep because of the people that are using it to be dramatic or for attention or just because they're being lazy or procrastinating something.
And some people, too, are ashamed to admit that maybe they are on medication or maybe they went to see a therapist or something along those lines because they don't want people to think that they're crazy. But that can also be kind of detrimental because then, you think you're alone in all this when you think you're the only one that's like actually seeking help. And then it kind of turns into like, well, am I crazy because I think I'm the only one doing this? And it's like, you're not the only one and you're not crazy.
No. I mean, take the statistics we talked about, 1 in 4.
Yeah.
Like, you're definitely not alone.
Oh, no.
So, I mean, it's definitely worth, like, taking that step and going there, but I also understand why some people don't want to because of, like, the reputation it has, and that's not going to be fixed overnight, but it's something that I think, needs to be worked on as a society.
Definitely need more, like, education on it and, like, overall awareness, which I think is starting to happen, but we definitely need more.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, like, steps have been taken in the correct direction, which is great, and it's starting to be, like, talked about more in, like, high schools, middle schools, things like that. Like, in health class, when they're talking about, like, your body, they'll now, like, talk about, like, mental health, which I think is great and definitely needs to be done, but there are still stigmas out there, and personally, I just think there always will be.
Yeah.
Which.
And it's, like, tough, too, because I had a health teacher that didn't want to cover, like, mental health or really anything. This man would rather talk about Bigfoot. So, so it was, it was covered, but it was like, hey guys, there's anxiety, depression, OCD. Yeah, okay, next.
Yeah, like these are the disorders, and this is what each one means. Like, oh, this is what ADHD stands for. Like,
and you're
things like that.
I got that, but like, what does it look like?
And like, how do I go about getting help?
Yeah.
Or like, what are maybe some resources?
Or how do you help, like, notice someone who's struggling? Maybe you could help them.
Yeah, and these are things that definitely need to be covered that aren't.
Yeah. So along with that, that leads us into our next segment. We got a bunch of questions and comments off of our Instagram. And one of them is about mental health in schools and how it's not always covered the best. And some students felt like when they went to counseling, they were kind of just told, like, just feel better, here's a little sticker, instead of they didn't felt like it was being taken seriously.
Yeah, and I mean, this question or comment was definitely more directed towards colleges than high schools.
Yeah.
Just because of our age and where we are. But, I think that's something that some schools have a lot of issues with. I think sometimes it's not always handled the best way. But also, I think they do what they can.
Yes.
And I also feel as though I don't know enough about
the specifics.
Yeah, and like I don't know the exact number of students they're getting each week. I don't know because I know around finals a lot more people sign up and they can't take them all. And that's not really on them. There's not enough time in the day.
No.
So I think when it comes to that, I mean, if the school counseling center doesn't exactly work for you or you need something else, I would look into like private counseling services.
There's so many
and
options.
Things like that. And they can even refer you to one.
Yeah.
If they don't have enough room, you can ask for a referral just to kind of get you on the right path because it's not always their fault, which is understandable. And like sometimes, everyone has their own experiences. I'm not trying to downplay it by any means.
Yeah.
But, sometimes there's cases out of their control.
And two, sometimes someone will connect with one counselor or therapist and not another one. But maybe like your friend or some random person connects with the other one and is like, they're great, they're wonderful. And you're like, really? I did not get that.
Exactly, because we're all different and we all have different needs and we all have like different ways of, going about situations and thinking. So it makes sense that, a therapist that works for you might not work for me. We're
Yeah.
different people.
And also, too, there's different types of therapy. Like, one might specialize in like cognitive behavioral therapy, and another one might specialize in something completely different, like schizophrenia or
Yeah, and you have like
anything like
family
that.
therapy, you have
Like marriage counseling. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many.
Exactly. So, to that I say, I'm sorry you had a bad experience. I hope you at least like the sticker. Um, but yeah, I mean, definitely take steps into finding one you do like, and
Yeah.
sometimes it takes a while, but it's worth the wait when you find one that works.
For sure. And I also think, like, one last point for that, I definitely think schools could start going into mental health earlier because even children who are young, like 8 years old, can still suffer from anxiety or, anything like that. And it's not always recognized because they're like, oh, they're such like little, like everything is great, it's fine. And also, like, they don't totally understand their feelings. And so it's hard for them to express that. But if they were taught a little bit more about mental health and, maybe not like obviously throw down like the super intense, like, this is what depression is and like scare them. But I think there's a way you can like teach from a young age.
Oh, definitely. Because I think it's like more of they act out because they can't verbalize how they're feeling.
Yes.
And then parents think it's like a phase or,
Yeah.
That's what schools think and stuff like that, which, can just lead them down a worse road. So another comment that we got, well, question/comment, is how parents and friends can help instead of thinking everything is exaggerated. And, that's definitely another issue in society as a whole. Definitely some parents and friends are, better at, helping instead of hurting.
Yeah.
And I think it's just definitely their belief system in general, where some parents, they don't think it's real, they think it's exaggerated and stuff like that. And at that point, I would say, depending on your age and where you are, you know, reach out to a school nurse, like a counseling center, something that's offered through like a different part of your life. If you've tried talking to your parents and friends and you think it's like a real issue, keep trying and keep expressing how you feel. And maybe, if you can and you feel comfortable, like sit them down and say, listen, this is how you're making me feel.
Have like a really like
Yeah, like
deep
I
conversation
don't think
with
I'm
them.
exaggerating. Like, I think there's something wrong and I'm trying to talk to you about it. And this is the way you're making me feel.
Yeah.
Don't attack them by any means because that's not going to help anything.
No, of course.
But, use the I feel statements.
Mm-hmm.
But, definitely try to be real with them and express it to them in like a civilized sit down conversation where you're both engaged. And
Yeah.
that could be a breaking point. But then still, if that doesn't work, try to seek help in either other family and friends or like a counselor of some sort.
Yeah. And I think too, as like the other side of it, just asking a person like, what do you need from me? Because sometimes I'm like, I want you to just sit here and watch me cry and eat food with me. But other times I want you to like give me a pep talk and be like, snap out of it. So, and like sometimes people always want that. Sometimes people always want just sit here and like hug me and whatever, or, however they want to be comforted. And sometimes it might change. And being the person that's like, what do you need from me in this moment can seriously help someone when they're in like a really dark space.
No, honestly, that's like the best advice ever. Because I say that to my mom because my mom, love her, totally understanding, and she's always worked to like try to understand more
Yeah.
of like what I'm going through and stuff like that. But she, a mom, like she wants to provide answers and she doesn't want her child to be in pain, so she wants to provide like ways to fix it. So like I've started telling her, I'm like, listen, I was like, I don't need like an advisor, I don't need a counselor, I need my mom. I need you to be my mom.
Yeah, there are
So it's
times.
like you want to just like sit there and you want to explain and you want to rant and you want to like have a little pity party for a little bit
Yeah, and
and
then
then
pick
go
yourself
from
back
there.
up.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there are times where I've like called my mom and I'm like, I want you to tell me I'm being stupid and like whatever. And then I'm like, Mom, I just want you to like,
Feel bad
show
for
me a
me.
picture of like the dogs and like feel bad for me. Like,
Yes. Yes.
And she's like, all right, we could do both.
Exactly. And it's like, yes, like sometimes you need that tough love, but sometimes you need a good balance.
Yeah. Someone left us a very interesting comment.
Me too, sis.
About how they felt like they were having constant anxiety and they felt like they were doing more like reckless things and they didn't really know how to fix it and help themselves. And in that situation, I would definitely say reach out, try to find a counselor, a friend, someone to talk to. And then there are also ways that you can, have like self care. And that's different for everyone. Like for me, it's taking a day to myself, like staying in my bed, not really having social interaction, fully recharge. But for my one friend, it's like, I'm going to go get my nails done. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to pick myself back up and, feel like a new person.
I go to Michael's. I and all of my friends know, like, that is where I go. Like, that's the one store. Don't get me wrong, like, if I'm, like, feeling upset or something, like, retail therapy,
It's fabulous.
I am that person. But, sometimes, like, there's other things you can do, obviously, but I like to create things.
Yeah.
Like, as I say to my friends, I'm crafty. So I like, going and getting a little project and putting on like my Netflix movie or whatever I'm watching, like my
Yes.
Netflix show, sitting there like making some popcorn and like watching that while like doing my little craft. And like I tend to, if I'm anxious or something, I tend to stay off social media or social media that would harm my mental health.
Yeah.
And things like, Pinterest and stuff are okay because like you can look at other things like recipes, fun
Crafts.
things you can kind of do, crafts in my case. And that's not really gonna like harm my mental health in any way.
No.
Just with what is on my feed for that. But it's different for everyone, Sometimes like if you have the ability to like have a bathtub and you want to like light some candles, take a bath, like take a minute to
Yeah.
yourself, do a face mask. And like as much as I like hate to say it and it's not necessarily me, like go for a run, go for a jog, like
It
work out
honestly
because
makes
it can
you.
release that
Yeah.
like stress.
I always think of Elle Woods when she's like, happy people like or people when they work out they get endorphins
Yeah,
and it
and
makes them happy and happy
yeah.
people don't kill their husbands like
Happy people don't kill their husbands.
and sometimes it's really tough but like also knowing that like you did that for yourself and you got yourself up to do that you're like I did that like damn like I really got myself to do that.
And like as like one of my friends says, it's type 2 fun where you don't feel like you're not having fun doing it, but you're like happy after that you did it. Like
Yeah,
you're
I love
happy that
that.
you did it. It's type 2 fun.
Type 2 fun.
And I think it's like a thing. I don't really know. It might just be a her thing.
I mean, it's going to be my new thing now.
Yeah, but like, it does release a lot of what you want to do. And if you don't want to like do a big jog or anything, go for a walk.
Yeah.
Even just getting fresh air and like sometimes I think like the hardest part is like when I get more in like a depressive state, I am a trash can. I am a human trash can. So like sometimes just getting up, doing your laundry, washing your dishes, taking the 16 cups that have accumulated in your room in random areas
I have that problem.
out of your room. Like sometimes just getting that together, lighting a candle, putting in an air freshener, like things like that can make you feel so much better
really
and it's
can.
not as much work as you think it is.
No, it's really not. And like, it kind of sounds like how could that be self-care? But you're focusing your energy on something else, whether it's productive like cleaning or whatever, or fun like crafting. You're putting all that energy and worry into something else. And so it kind of not like totally leaves you, but you get a break from it and your body gets to recharge.
Definitely. And I'd say like it's good to have a hobby.
Yeah.
And not everyone needs one hobby. And you don't have to be good at that hobby. You can be awful at that hobby. But, say you really like painting or say you want to try something new. Like, take a pottery class. Like, just, like, do something fun for you. It doesn't have to be expensive. You know, if you don't have money, like, that's fine. You
Yeah.
can find things to do. Like, going for a walk, like, taking pictures with your friends, like, whether they're good or
Yeah.
not. Like, just doing something fun and getting out of your comfort zone sometimes. It, like, gets your mind off of the things that are hurting you and can just, like, be better. And that's really, like, I mean, the best advice I have, because sometimes we're all just, you know, losing our crap.
Yeah. Like when I'm super in my head, like I'll put in my headphones and dance. Like,
Yeah.
and I'll just like, you know, whether it was like old routines that we used to do or just like new, I don't know, that's like my creative outlet where, you know, if I'm like mad, like, you know, put on whatever music and like dance to that or like, you know,
Take Footloose, for example.
I
Like, let me
love
tell you.
Footloose. Or like, you know, sometimes it sounds weird when people are like, I'm sad and I put on my sad playlist. And it's like, sometimes in a weird way, that works and
I
it's
do
good for
that.
you. Like, who cares?
Like, if you have to go, put on your sad playlist and go in the shower and perform it,
Have a concert.
let me tell you, it does wonders. Like, I'm not even mad about sharing that, because honestly, like, the things, like, if you need, you know, sometimes you just have to cry. Crying also lets out those endorphins.
A lot, yeah.
So,
After a good cry, I
yeah,
feel great.
sometimes you just have to cry. Don't be ashamed to cry.
No.
I'm not saying you have to go out in public and cry.
Yeah.
Me. But, you know, if you want to sit in your room, put on a sad movie, put on, like, a sad playlist and cry, like, do what works for you.
Yeah, it's like you get those
You know?
emotions out in a safe, non-harmful way.
Exactly. So what we're
And-
saying is, don't harm others or yourself.
Please.
Like, you know, find an outlet that is good for you to express yourself through. And, like, you know, what works for us might not work for all of you. You know, what works for me might not work for you.
Exactly.
And that's fine. But finding, like, something that you can kind of put your energy towards that's going to get your mind off of things can help.
For sure. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'm Bailey.
And I'm Maddie.
Thank you so much for watching.
And check in with us next week.